Welcome back. Today's guest is the director of Gran Turismo. He's known for sci-fi films District 9, Elysium, and Chappie. It's director Neill Blomkamp. You'll hear my interview with him after this clip from the film.
You really think that you're going to put some kid who's been playing a game in his bedroom into a 200-mile-an-hour rocket? It'll tear him to pieces. You know that if you get in a wreck out here, you can't hit reset, right? How many guys you go to before you went to me?
Few?
Yeah.
A lot. These kids, they're outsiders too.
And that was a clip from Gran Turismo, and I'm delighted to be joined by its director, Neill Blomkamp. Neill, welcome. Where do we find you?
I'm in Barcelona right now at a racetrack, which is kind of awesome. I sort of wish I used this track in the movie, actually, to be honest.
Well, the ones that you used in the movie are pretty awesome in themselves, actually. Neill, could you please just introduce us to the world of Gran Turismo and the extraordinary story of Jan Mardenborough?
Well, so Columbia offered me this film, and I had no idea how you could make a movie about Gran Turismo because I know it as basically as a racing simulator. I wouldn't even say it's a game. Like it's a racing simulator. And I just didn't understand what the approach would be to make a film about this particular game. There's no narrative, there's no characters. And then I learned about Jan Mardenborough, and I learned about GT Academy. And GT Academy was this idea that was a combination between Nissan and the motorsports division of Nissan pairing up with Polyphony, which is the company that made Gran Turismo, the video game company that made Gran Turismo. And basically their plan was to find the world's best simulation races that played GT and see what would happen if they put them in real race cars on real racetracks and teach them how to drive an actual car. And there are a bunch of successful drivers, but Jan Mardenborough was one of the drivers that this film is based on because he went on to race in GT3 classification, and he raced at Le Mans, and he raced GT 500, I think, in Japan. So it's just an amazing story. It's like taking someone from their parents' bedroom who's, playing PlayStation at home, learning skills well enough to be put on a racetrack with professional race drivers. I mean, it's very interesting.
Do you know what was interesting about that as well is that how young Jan was, the fact that he beat, I think, 90,000 other people to get the gig. He'd only passed his driving test a short while before he kind of embarked on all of this. And it's a premise that sounds like it was written for a Hollywood film. Yeah.
That's one part of it, but the Hollywood film sort of 3-act structure continues. And it's the movie in the way that it's structured. I think people will think that we embellished a lot of it, and we didn't. It's like this is actually how it played out up until the point that the movie stops. And then obviously his life continued. And
he's still a young man, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 30.
Yeah, it was just spring chicken. And now this film is obviously, different from your previous films that involved a lot of science fiction elements and horror, I suppose. What was it that drew you to this film about gaming and racing?
It was immediately interesting to me because, there were a bunch of different factors, but I think maybe they're of equal importance to me, but I feel like the most important element that drew me in was the movies that I naturally make, sort of left to my own devices, are quite, at their core, they're kind of pessimistic. Like, I'm naturally a little bit more upbeat than I think people would assume I would be, given the subject matter that I'm interested in and how I have, I think, a kind of negative outlook on humanity. But there's a mixture in the stuff that I've done before, which is sort of a combination of, on a societal level, quite bleak, and on an individual or personal level, quite optimistic, or quite finding the good in humans, but on an individual level. And this movie was completely different because it felt like it actually was just a straight up positive aspirational story. And I realized that there was no plan in future for me to ever make something that would make, the 13-year-old version of me leave a theater feeling inspired the way that I did when I saw Rocky or something like that. I just immediately decided that I wanted to make at least one film that did that. And then, you know, I could happily return back to some ultra violent, dark, pessimistic. So it was super, super clear to me that it was like, no, I want to do exactly that. And then the other two elements was, one is I love cars. And then I also was sort of blown away by this concept of being interested in video games and thinking about video games into film adaptations, but never seeing something that was basically a biography mixed with a video game. I thought that was a super interesting way to make a film that was basically a video game title. And that those three things are the things that I think made me want to make it.
We kind of established that it's a true life story and all the protagonists are still around. I was just wondering if there's a different kind of pressure on you as a director in doing that, because it's real people in real life as opposed to fictional characters that you can create. Like
an authenticity that you get the story right. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, in that regard, that pressure swirled entirely around Jan because it was so centric around him. It's like the other characters are much less important. It's his story. And I checked with him, you know, I don't know about daily, but I would say almost daily. I would check with him in pre-production and also in production about elements like whether it's a larger story element or even a smaller set decoration or art department question, you know, like anything that could add authenticity, I would check with him.
I mean, I have to confess, I did play Gran Turismo. Can you play it? Now you've said it's not a game. I'm not sure what the right word for...
No, you definitely would play it. I mean, it's just a weird, it's hard to quantify exactly what it is. Like if people don't know it, you know, it's like you're basically just driving cars very realistically, whatever that is. That's what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I played the first two versions that came out. And then a friend of mine had a steering wheel and I couldn't afford one. And I gave up because it was kind of like, well, that's more fun than me sitting in my bedroom with a little controller. Yeah. But had you played the game before?
Yeah. I had played it, but I wasn't like an avid player. My video game interest is usually more in like first-person shooters or multiplayer shooters for whatever reason. It's just like what I'm interested in. But I had definitely played Gran Turismo, and my brother is like a sim racing fanatic. So I also had this other level of exposure with him where, you know, it's been in my environment for a decade.
I mean, after I saw the film, I drove home after the screening, and I've never been more aware of seeing race lines on the roads around London and having to remember. Having to remember there's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But I mean, you certainly captured the feel and look of the game, actually, certainly as I remembered it. And I wondered how much of a challenge that was in terms of cinematography, particularly to get those textures.
Yeah, you know, the movie was pretty difficult to film, actually, because there was a lot of different technical elements that I wanted to include that all were very real world. You know, the VFX elements, there were substantial amounts of VFX that were done, and I'm super happy with the VFX work that we did. But the technical elements in the real world were quite hard to execute. Like even just the POV shot, like in Gran Turismo, you have the grille, and then you have the in the driver's seat POV, and then you have the shot behind the car where you can see the whole vehicle. And I wanted all three of those in the movie. So the grille is easy. The whole car is a little bit more difficult because you need a super stable arm to hold the camera, and then you've got to paint out the support so it looks like the car is just hovering in 3D space. But interestingly, the most difficult one is the driver's POV. Like it's super complicated because the camera's immense and you've got to bolt it in place of where the head of the driver would be. So all of a sudden, it's like you need a right-hand drive vehicle for a left-hand drive appearing vehicle with a stunt driver who's lying under the camera with his hands on the steering wheel, you know, and another driver driving the car. So it's like everything like that just adds up. But I tried to basically make a real-world version of what the game, what my perception of what the game felt like. And then also to use VFX to bring this sort of holographic projection of what I imagine the PlayStation computing into the real world. So you could see around the console that he's playing on, like how this is being computed inside the mind of the the PlayStation, essentially, that it's like the car is the correct size and this track is 8 kilometers long, you know? So it's like those elements are all really there. Even when you're playing on a small PlayStation that's sitting next to you and you're using a TV, it's calculating it in real space. And that's a very interesting concept that you could like holographically project for the audience and let them see.
It certainly captured that. It was the other thing that really struck me actually seeing it in the cinema was the sound.
Yeah,
sound is extraordinary. I mean,
I'm super happy with the sound design in the film. I love all the sound designers did such good work.
And that must have been, was that a post-production notions, or did you have that in mind when you were filming?
No, it was 100% thought of like right off the bat. Like there was one sound engineer actually that I brought on who mostly works in commercials, and I had done a commercial with before, who's kind of really well known for putting together just insane vehicle sounds. And then through the ultra professional, feature film sound designers and mixers, we just basically ended up with this like AAA, group of sound people that was like, I was just lucky to work with.
We must mention Archie Madokwe, who stars as Jan Mardenborough, who put in such a believable performance. What was it about him specifically that you felt was right for the part?
Well, I'd gotten to know Jan to some degree, and what you were referring to earlier about trying to make something that felt authentic to the story of his life, particularly. And Archie was right for a whole number of different reasons, but I initially did a Zoom with him and met him for the first time, and I could just tell instantly that he was the right person for the movie. And then I met him in real life in London, and he like on one hand, he's just a very, very talented actor. And then on the other hand, he sort of, even though physically he's very different from Jan, his energy, like the charisma of him is sort of in line with Jan. Like they're both very grounded. I just felt like he was right immediately. And then I ended up loving working with him. He's like a very professional, very attentive actor who is just a great collaborator.
He's also exceptionally tall.
Yeah, it's crazy tall.
He's just about 6.5 feet tall or something, he looks.
Yeah. Yeah, he is exactly like 6.5 feet. And it was actually physically troublesome, like to get him into the car and make
well, that's what I was wondering, yeah.
It was difficult. And he hated being in the car. Absolutely hated it. It's funny, like for someone who leads the movie, he has no interest in cars, no interest in racing, and no interest in Gran Turismo, which basically tells you he's a good actor. Like that, those are the requirements, essentially, of like, if he was into any of those, I would be concerned.
Well, those are great notes when I go into my next audition for the next film I go up for.
Yeah.
And how much of the driving did he and the other cast members do? I heard quite a lot.
Well, it's none of them were driving in the sense that they're hitting like the accelerator or the brakes, but every single time you see him or any of the other actors in the cars, it is 100% real. I mean, there's like meaning that there's a stunt driver in a pod system that's either almost always on the roof, which frees up your entire internal cabin for whatever camera placement you want. The thing also to remember that's really insane is the driver is above him and he's having to have faith in the driver. But the other thing is that firstly, he has the cameras in front of him, but we also put diffusion on the windshield and the windows, right, to try to control the light. So he has no field of view, basically. You have all of those G-forces within an enclosed environment and the heat of the car. So it's basically like a motion sickness nausea machine.
That's absolutely terrifying. I mean, I've done lots of kind of car sequences when you've got the camera rig in front of you, and it's really disconcerting.
Yeah.
And, on a low loader or something like that. So
yeah.
Car being trailed behind for those people who don't know. And that's really unnerving on its own.
Yeah.
But thank you, Neill. I mean, whatever it is that you do next, to quote from Gran Turismo, take that Kenny G anger and unleash it.
Cool.
Neill Blomkamp, very much appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
That was Neill Blomkamp. The film was Gran Turismo, and here comes the review.
So, firstly, I'm not a gamer, and what I know about racing cars would not fill the back of a postage stamp. So I didn't know any of this. I didn't know the story of Jan Mardenborough at all. I went in thinking, oh, it's a computer game movie. Let's see what happens. And I am a fan of Neill Blomkamp. I mean, I love District 9. I actually liked Elysium, which had a sort of slightly harder time with the critics. And so the story itself is kind of rather extraordinary. And you said, it's a bit of a left turn in terms of his previous career, but there is still a central thing about alien worlds colliding, is that on the one hand, you have the gamer community, and on the other hand, you have the racing community, the sim races and the real races, and somebody goes from this world into this world, which is not a million miles away from people come from outer space and arrive on Earth and find it to be a hostile and harsh place. So I think actually there is a tie-up with the rest of Blomkamp's back catalogue. And I think that thing about him saying it was a chance to make a movie that would make the young version of me come out of the cinema feeling uplifted, which I think works well. Archie Madokwe is really good in the central role. Again, as I said, I didn't know the character beforehand. I'm slightly taken aback at the beginning to find out that his parents are played by Jim Hansu and Ginger Spice. But actually, weirdly enough, I thought that very quickly, I got over that. Very quickly, it was just like, okay, fine. Well, that's, a strange bit of casting initially, but then perfectly fine. The person who steals the show, of course, is David Harbour, who plays the trainer, who basically is doing Lou Gossett Jr. from An Officer and a Gentleman. You're all rubbish, and none of you are going to get through, and you're all going to DOR by the end of the thing. And then, of course, he starts to rose because he's told by Orlando Bloom, who is cast as this slime ball sort of motorsport wheeler dealer. And it's an interesting bit of casting, but actually kind of, I think, oddly works quite well. He said, yeah, but the thing is, they're outsiders, and you're an outsider because you're a racer, and then you stepped away and you're an outsider. So at the center of it is that relationship between the trainer and the driver, and they discover that they have more in common than you think. I think the stuff that works is that all the stuff when he's gaming, he sort of imagines it as a real world thing. So when he's sitting there playing at his console, he imagines the car is sort of virtually appears around him. But then when they get out on the racetrack, he imagines it as a game. So you get, we had a little bit of this in Tetris, which we talked about a little while ago, that when he's on the racetrack, you get the visuals from the game, first place, second place, goal achieved, all that stuff. And I actually thought that blurring of the two worlds was well done. There are some drawbacks. To say the script is on the nose is to understate the punch you in the nose nature of the script. I mean, it is a script in which people do sort of say things out loud in a way that you think, okay, I wouldn't have gone that way, but since you are literally stating what we're seeing right now, right in front of it,
there's way more text than sub.
Yeah, it's all text. It's not there is no underlying message that somebody doesn't shout. You're getting this at the back. The two worlds colliding. It's virtual, but it's That said, I thought the racing sequences were very exciting. I didn't know the story. I mean, some people said, "Well, of course you know." No, I didn't know the story, and I did find some of those bits really, really tense. And somebody who isn't a gamer, I was drawn into this. And I did think, guys, is this true? He literally went from being a kid playing a game at home in Cardiff to doing Le Mans, which is, my dad took me to see the film of Le Mans when I was a kid. And I was always, and there's a bit when I think David Harbour gets one like, Le Mans it will test it was just almost like it'll test your head, your mind, and your brain. It was one of those. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was. I mean, there are things wrong with it, but nothing that made me not think that if I was a teenager watching that film, I'd be swept up in it. Come on, what did you think?
I enjoyed the racing scenes very much. I completely agree with you, actually. I think that, I'm a sucker for parent-child relationships in films, and I thought the heart of this was a father-son, one with his actual father and then one with his surrogate father, neither of which stories were developed as much as I would have liked.
No.
Although
Jerry Halliwell does get to deliver the immortal line, "These lentils, they're nice."
I did wonder on set whether Jerry Halliwell had asked Neill Blomkamp, or told Neill Blomkamp, what she wanted, what she really, really wanted. So I'll just leave that out
Here
there.
all week.
Yeah, I
Don't
did.
you go changing. Murph and the Magic Tones.
That's a great reference. Okay, cool. Well, that was Gran Turismo, and we are now, I believe, looking at my script.
It's time, Sanj. It's time to tank time to tank your career once and for all.
I'm going to read this with one slight self-edit. Okay.
I'd just like to we need to set this up as star of stage, screen, and radio, funny man, Sanjeev Bhaskar leads us into...
Here's the script. It's the ads in a minute, Mark. But first, it's time once again to step into your, it says your laughter lift.
Don't blame me.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Sanj.
In light of your review of upcoming Meg 2 this week, who's a shark's favourite Star Wars character?
I don't know, Sanj. Who is a shark's favourite Star Wars character? Jar Jar Binks?
Chewbacca.
Jar Jar Binks is funnier.
Chewbacca doesn't... I mean, it's got the word chew in it, but...
And also, Chewbacca's name is literally a pun on Chewbacca.
Yeah. Okay, but hey, let's move on.
Very poor.
Let's not be held back by that. And since we're also reviewing Gran Turismo, or
yes,
at least
we just have
since
done.
we've just reviewed Gran Turismo,
you haven't checked this script, have you?
Bit of a test for you now. Who won the 1975 F1 World Championship?
I don't know, Sanj. Who won the 19...
No, you've got a specific thing to say.
It's a script.
Yeah,
hang on.
I'll set it up again.
Wait, hold on. I haven't got it. I haven't given
Page 14.
Yeah, but look, they blanked my bits out. They've literally it's got the.
Okay,
tell me what to say. I'll read it.
Okay. Bit of a test for you now. Who won the 1975 Formula One World Championship?
Louder. Who won?
It's just okay. Anyway, we've got one more.
It's great. That sound you can hear is your career in freefall.
It's the hope. It's the hope.
Okay, fine. Okay, let's get it.
Anyway, I know you're missing Simon since he's left you, so I've just bought a racehorse and named it Mayo. Mayo neighs sometimes. By Grabthar's hammer. What a savings. Anyway, we're still here. We've survived. What's still to come?
I don't think anything is still to come. Meg 2.
We'll be back after this. Unless you're a Vanguardista, in which case we'll be back after this.
Or you're Sanj's agent going, I don't want to work with you anymore.
And we're back. And now it's time for Meg 2.
It's funny whenever anybody ever does the "duh" thing, because it was it Naked Gun part "duh"? I think that was where that all began.
No, I think it was Naked Gun 2.5.
No, there is a Naked Gun 2.5, but that's the third one, isn't it?
No.
No.
It was Hot Shots.
It was Hot Shots part "duh."
Yeah.
Well done. That's right. And it was Naked Gun, then Naked Gun 2.5, then Naked Gun. And this is the best one. 33 1/3.
Fantastic.
Just for the record.
Yeah. Was it number 2 that was The Smell of Fear?
Yes, I think that's right. But just for the record, that's it. Okay. So,
excellent.
Meg 2, The Trench, which is the sequel to The Meg, based on the series of Meg novels. This is based on the sequel, although very, very loosely. Incidentally, in the series of Meg novels, there are Meg Primal Waters, Meg Hell's Aquarium, and the forthcoming Meg Purgatory. So,
there isn't a Meg Richardson.
Very good. Or indeed a Meg Ryan. No. So this is the big news. It's directed by Ben Wheatley, and I'm a fan of Ben Wheatley's films. And Ben Wheatley started his career with sort of viral comedies, and then he graduated to low budget works like Down Terrace and Kill List and Sightseers and Field in England. He did High Rise, which I thought was a really kind of ambitious adaptation of that. Free Fire, which I loved, and then the Netflix Rebecca remake. Most recently, he made that eco horror In the Earth, which they made during lockdown, which I thought was terrific. And when he said that, I said, what are you doing next? He said, I'm doing the Meg 2. I went, sorry. He said, I'm doing Meg 2 with Jason Statham. Pardon me. And of course, it sort of actually makes sense when you know Ben Wheatley's sensibility. But so this opened 65 million years ago. There's a food chain. There's bugs, and then a bug's eaten by a bigger creature, and then a bug's eaten by a dinosaur. and then rah! So it sets itself up as Jurassic Shock. Okay, boom. Thank you. I was very proud of that joke. So now, 5 years after the original Meg, aka Jason Statham's Shark Puncher. So Jonas, he's been fighting eco-crimes. He's helping to explore the Mariana Trench while serving as a single parent to his daughter, Mei, who, with help from their uncle, who is played by Wu Jing, who's a Chinese martial arts star. They've been training a baby Meg to respond to their commands, although Jason thinks you can't train a Meg. A Meg is just a Meg, you can't, whatever it is. Oh my God, it's Megalodon. And it proves right when the Meg gets out it goes to the trench, and then other Megs are in the trench, and they are protected by the thermal barrier, which stops them coming out of the trench. But there are people doing illegal mining in the trench, and there's an explosion thingy which breaks the thermal barrier, and so Megs get out of the trench, and there's a whole lot of kind of Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff. So Jules Verne, this is clearly made by somebody who grew up loving Land That Time Forgot, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Mothra, of course, Ben Wheatley's a big fan of Mothra. And actually, in many ways, Meg 2, The Trench is a sort of modern version of Mothra. It's also clearly made by somebody who, because he's kind of the same age as me. Do you remember Action Comics in the 1970s with Hook, which we always get them taken off you at school? You can't have that. It was disgraceful. And there are Thunderbirds gags in Meg as well. And I say this to somebody who has a Thunderbird puppet of themselves. Set pieces, which like this underwater thing when they're in this one place and they have to get to this other place and they have to walk in these suits, but there's all this sort of magical stuff going on. There are set pieces involving the Staith on a jet ski, and a lot of it is apparently the Staith on a jet ski with a pointy stick fighting monsters that are like the size of a house. And you go, but it's a pointy stick with a thing on the end of it. How's that going to work? It's okay because he's the Staith. And then it all leads to a place called Fun Island. Fun Island is entirely populated by a bunch of people who, they just look like bait. That's what they're there for. And then all this stuff is happening. So, film wasn't widely pressed. And I saw it a while ago because Ben Wheatley came on MK3D, the show that I do at the BFI. And I saw it in the morning and I came out of it and I said, well, that was absolutely mad. And I had enjoyed it. And then, of course, there have been the critics have been very, very sniffy about it. The box office, however, has been very, very good. I mean, worldwide, it is currently #1 in the box office. Why? Well, the reason is very simple. It may not be a critics' film, but it's much more fun than it had any right to be. Firstly, the problem with the first film was too well behaved to be really entertaining. Like, it sounded like it was a great idea, but it was kind of PG-13 and it didn't have the gore or the bite that it needed to have. So it was like after that trailer, oh my God, it's Megalodon. And you go to the film, oh yeah, okay, that's... So Meg 2, because they still can't have any more gore because it still has to be the same sort of family rating, what they've done is cranked up the madness. So it starts in kind of, okay, fine, yeah, this is like a bit more Meg and, I understand that thing. Then the second act picks up the pace. There's the underwater sequence in the trench, and it could have been out in space, so that's good. And then the third act goes absolutely loop-de-loo, la-la, what on earth is going on? And it's everything is thrown at the screen. There's more Megs, there's more monsters, there's more whirlicopters fighting giant, big, tentacular things that get cut. And there's one moment when literally a huge, big tentacle and a whirlicopter thing goes around and the tentacle comes flying up. And I'm thinking, this is insane. This is absolutely... And the best thing about it is that it's paced in a way that kind of goes, boom, 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 boom. And the whole film has got this kind of headlong rush to it that I really enjoyed myself. I mean, on one level, it's a sort of, a well-made version of Sharknado or Shark Exorcist. I mean, it's that level of sort of, foolishness. But I think that what Ben Wheatley has done is to understand what it is, that it is a fun, ridiculous romp. And the way in which it's paced and the fact that I think he loves the same things that I love. I mean, there is an awful lot of those, you keep expecting to see Doug McClure turn up but I wrote down a bunch of lines from the movie, which delighted me. Okay, so here are some of the dialogue highlights. Statham, it's a deviated septum, which is fantastic. Half my team is dead, and I'm not going to lose the other half. I've slightly had to, this sure is some dumbass spit. Followed by, that was some unfortunate spit back there. And one of my favourites, this feels unpleasantly familiar. And now that later on, I still think we look like food. And the standout, he ate the whole boat.
He ate the whole boat.
The whole boat.
Brilliant.
Honestly, I grinned all the way through it. And I thought that the thing that was really smart about it, like I said, I've seen the reviews, and I some of the reviews have been like really, really, really stinky. I mean, most of the reviews have been really, really stinky. I really enjoyed it. And I know that what everyone says, they say, well, you really love it because you love Ben Wheatley. I love Ben Wheatley because he's the kind of guy who can take Meg 2, The Trench, it's a deviated septum, and make a movie that kicked me out at 11 o'clock on a Thursday morning with a smile on my face from ear to ear.
I mean, it's, I've read some of the reviews, and there were some that debated whether this wasn't a film that was so bad it was good. It was so bad it was bad.
No,
but also
that's not right.
Sometimes I think you just need silly.
Yeah,
and it releases a certain amount of tension because you just go, it's just silly, and it's supposed to be silly, and that's absolutely fine. Does it fall into that category?
Yeah, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and I think it's a film that knows what it's doing and is enjoying doing it.
I think in any film where you've got, the Staith who's effectively saying, just hand me the pointy stick.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a jet ski.
The pointy stick.
And I know that the thing is enormous, but I'm going to stick the pointy stick in the end of the thing.
I'm going to free dive to the bottom of the trench.
With my deviated septum.
We have a bit of correspondence that's come in.
Okay, go.
It says, Dear Rosie and Jim, chugging along on the old ragdoll. Okay. LTL and FTE, always been happy to listen from the periphery rather than send in my opinions. However, it took a recent viewing of Meg 2, The Trench to air my views. While watching M2TT, belief was firmly suspended on numerous occasions. I have never facepalmed during a film till this, but once that seal was broken, the well was returned to numerous times. From gaping plot holes with oxygen reserves and underwater atmospheric pressure to special reference to the whole deviated septum diving scene. The film feels it is set in an alternative reality where really and WTF reactions are par for the course.
Yes.
The second half of the film desperately steals plot elements from Avatar, Piranha, and even looks to go full-on Godzilla at one point to keep the action going.
And Mothra.
I would say I had enjoyed the film, but don't know what I feel as I left the cinema dumbstruck. David, 465 ranked Magic of the Gathering player UK 1995.
Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering.
Sanj, welcome to the family. Magic the Gathering. Big part of our household. I love that. I'd say I enjoyed it, but I don't know what on earth I felt. I came out WTF. That, I think, is exactly right. And can I just reassure you, you did enjoy it. With all that face palming, what the actual, it's fun.
Good face palming.
It's fun. Good face palming, but just don't deviate your septum.
Yeah, I mean,
as you do it, you can do it like that.
Pointy stick. That's Meg 2. Of course, send your correspondence in as you get to see it over the coming weeks. And now it's time for this week's listener correspondence.
Hello, Mark and Simon. On our doorstep is the timely new independent documentary about the Calais jungle refugee camp and the grassroots humanitarian movement that rose to its aid in 2016. After sellout shows across the country, the film has been called galvanizing and inspiring, an essential documentary, and a remarkable act of bearing witness. My name is Tom, I'm the director, and I just wanted to let your discerning listeners know that there are 2 more opportunities to see this documentary on the big screen, this Saturday, the 12th of August, and Tuesday, the 15th of August, at Bertha Dockhouse in London. From then onwards, it's available to stream on Curzon Home Cinema. Come down and see it, or sit up and stream it. It'll be worth your while. Go to onourdoorstepdoc.com/screenings. Thanks very much.
That was Tom, the director of On Our Doorstep, an indie documentary about the Calais refugee camp, which is screening in London this month. And remember, send your 20-second audio trailer about your event anywhere in the world to correspondence@kermodeandmayo.com. And that's the end of Take One. This has been a Sony Music Entertainment production. The team was Lily Hamley, Ryan O'Meara, Matthias Dorez. Beth was the assistant producer. Michael Dale wrote the guest notes. Hannah Talbot was the producer. Mark, what is your film of the week?
Am I allowed to do this? It came out last week, but can I have Meg 2, please? Meg 2, The Trench.
There you have it. We've got Take 2 and Take 3 coming up, which will also be dropping today. Thanks very much for your time. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's Take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would.
There you
I
go.
have done.
Excellent.